Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrican, coming to you on Thursday, January 30th. The club enters their second week of the preseason camp, and we've got to look at some new faces as well as a re-signing conversation to have, and we're going to look ahead to what might be in store this season. Plus, we're going to get you up to date on all the newest signings, news around the league, and so much more, and remind you that it's just 44 days before the first match of the 2025 season. Jason, my ride or die, my savant, co-host with the most, how are you doing, Mr. Carey?
I'm doing pretty good. I got called out for bringing negative vibes or something to the pod. So I've got nothing but, good vibes going out there. Nothing's going wrong for me right now.
Well, I mean, then I'll just ruin it and go on the negative vibes. And unfortunately, some sad news. It's always difficult to understand, like, what's our place in bringing a spotlight to things that a lot of people know. But I think just because this does impact people within the community, unfortunately, it was terrible news to discover today that two of the people in American Airlines Flight 5432 out of Washington, D.C., the crash with the Black Hawk helicopter, two of Rhode Island's family were lost in that incident. So our thoughts go out to Spencer and Christine Lane from Barrington. They're right down the street, and not them, but just community wise. So the questions will be asked. This is not a podcast to talk about that, but like when something like that happens at home, you don't know. Like maybe they went to a RIFC game last year. Maybe they're a part of our extended community and family. So it's just terrible when those kinds of things happen.
You hate to see it. It's unfortunate.
So I get to be the bearer of bad news for once, but hopefully whatever they do, and if we find something that can help with the community or move on, we'll make sure we share those in the social media to come. But I'll spin this and put a positive story on it. Well, at least a positive to the people that will enjoy this, and not so much for me. Do you remember back in November when we were driving through Providence and I hit that red light camera?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You were there. You were in the car. Don't pretend like you weren't.
I wasn't driving, so yeah, I don't.
I was. Yeah, I'm not trying to look. Everything I'm about to talk about, by the way, I was completely guilty. I want to be upfront and clear. This is completely my fault. I own it. I'm not trying to get out of it. I'm not trying to move away from it in any way, shape, or form. But when I got the letter in the mail and they showed me the picture of my car, you couldn't see how I had broken any laws. It was so dark, and I have a white SUV, and it was so dark, all you could see was my license plate. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I've got nothing but time on my hands. I'll go to court and I'll challenge this, right? And I know Judge Frank Caprio is not in office anymore. I know he's dealing with his personal battles with, I think, pancreatic cancer. And by the way, I know someone. It's Rhode Island, so someone through someone. Like I could go and have a conversation with Frank if I really needed to. Like I've got that level of connection. But I was thinking about fighting it, and I was like, this picture's so bad. How can they prove that I was even committed this crime? There's no representation in this citation. So I was like, I'm going to get out of this. And I went to go look at it, and someone's like, before you go and challenge this in your day in court, go watch the video. And it's really interesting how when you get this picture in the mail, they show you this really bad resolution shot, and then you go watch it on video. It's crystal clear. Like you cannot deny. Like you could put it in that Kentucky Derby race, to the final, right across the final line. I was guilty. I was so bad, and you didn't stop me from running that red light.
It happens,
But I will say this, and if for anyone that's either very familiar with traffic laws, I think Rowdy maybe can help me out here. There's no signage that indicates that is a red light camera, by the way. And I feel like, well, I should always be obeying all traffic laws at all times. Without signage there, I feel like there's entrapment, and I want to know if I should go fight this. I've already paid the ticket, but other people are going to fall for this. It's not fair. And but we live, we learn, and we move on. Quick hellos. Good evening, Tim. Good evening, Matthew. Good evening, William. And good evening to us. Always good to see some people early into the stream. It's 8 o'clock hits, and it's time for them to come along. We've got a lot of news tonight. Not a lot of RIFC centric stuff going on, but we have a lot of stuff to talk about. And I think let's get the alumni news out of the way. You either loved him or you didn't, and I think a lot of people may have not loved him after missing a sitter in one of the earliest games of the season. But Prince Sadie has officially signed with USL expansion for USL 1 and future Jägermeister Cup opponent in Westchester SC, reuniting with former RIFC and Hartford Athletic alumni Connor McGlynn. What are we thinking about that?
He didn't see the field too much. And I know we joke about missing the sitter, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities. We didn't get a lot of glimpses of him in the team. And it seemed like mid-season there was an option to kind of move him on. And I guess it worked for both parties in that essence. Maybe not in the long run here now that he's moving again. But maybe maybe he will find his groove again. Hopefully, as long as it's not when they're playing us.
Of course not. Yeah, we don't want to see that then. Although revenge would. Could you imagine if he gets the sitter again and then this time, looks
Buries
up at
it.
Defiance and bury? Oh, I can't imagine. If you're watching along on YouTube or on one of the stream sites that we use, I do love that in the image they used, he's wearing a Hartford kit. Like you couldn't find an image of him in his most recent team, either the Battery or with Rhode Island FC. A little slighted. I won't get too into it. I guess the only thing I would ask you is Kano had mentioned that this was a move when he went to Charleston that he needed because he was kind of on the wrong age of getting closer to 30 as a player. He tried to cut his teeth in the Charleston Battery, didn't quite make the splash he was probably hoping to. He's now going to USL 1. Is this, do you think this is Prince Sadie's last hurrah, or do you think there's more that he can prove and more he can show to not just fans of Westchester, but USL in general?
I think there's a possibility if he has a very good season that he could make his way back to the championship. But I think at the same time, he's putting himself in a position where if he doesn't, how much further down can he go? Right. Like
that's it, right? Because after that, it's semi-pro, like and it's USL2 and MLS Next Pro. This is it.
Getting towards the end. Maybe another USL1 team will give him another opportunity, assuming that he can at least put up some decent performances. But if he is not lights out, I don't think he can get back to the championship.
Well, we could see him also in the Open Cup. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's good to see him land on his feet. It's always good to see former RFC players, find their way and still be able to continue their path forward in playing professional sports. We don't want to see them retire. We don't want to see them lose their way. Speaking of kind of things on the inside, though, for a second here, some collusion, I think, going on in USL. We need to talk about this. I wanted to talk about the Rowdies and their 50th anniversary of being a club this year. But did you see this ball? This is complete collusion from USL and Tampa. This is the Tampa Bay ball, and it's being used across every league within USL this year. I don't know if it's to celebrate their 50th anniversary, but are we even going to pretend that there isn't collusion between HQ and their hometown favorites?
I love the name, Brilliant Super. Is that just another like Dragon Ball series?
I always love when like Japanese like plus ultra, like they add like two positives to amplify the situation. Are you a fan of this? Do you care? I mean, like every year it's a cash grab. Are you going to buy one of these balls? Like, talk to me.
I mean, the designs look cool. I think it would be nice if there were some different color options there. It does look a little close to the Rowdies. I guess congrats to them on 50 years. That's a good achievement. But like, are we going to rename the league the Tampa Bay Rowdy Soccer League Championship, or like what's going on here?
When Rhode Island FC hits its 50th, I just want it to be an amber and blue ball. That's I'd like one sooner, but like if we have to wait, 48 more years, I'll wait. That's fine. I won't probably be around to enjoy it, but nevertheless, speaking of Tampa Bay though, and all jokes aside, congrats on their 50th. Did you see their video of like celebrating it?
No, I haven't checked it out yet.
You got to get on the Instagrams and look at it. Those are so much fun. Like they're so inspirational. But my favorite takeaway from is they open this like classic war chest and they've got this vinyl like 45, so just like a single on it, and it's playing like "Where are the Rowdies? Where are the Like it's just like one of these old timey songs, and it's like that's what it's all about. Like that record, it's just priceless. I want more of that in my life.
So you're saying we can get La Banda on vinyl?
Oh my good, like. Defiance, make that happen. Sell your first vinyl. I bet no supporters group has ever sold a vinyl before. Get on that.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for like American.
Yeah, I'm only talking. Like, don't give me your don't give me your full world soccer talk here. And then final note on Tampa, by the way, I don't know if you saw this too, but I didn't realize that Tampa was still waiting for an emergency release of city funds to repair All Lang Stadium. We knew that it had been devastated in the hurricanes last season. It's what made their schedule so topsy-turvy at the end. I think the Rays Stadium is out of action for like a very long time. They may just rebuild or move now at this point. In fact, so much so that there's been conversation that if the Rays move, because they own the Rowdies, like what happens to them? I didn't realize that Al Lang was at such a risk of like not being ready for the season, but the city has released the emergency funds. The stadium will get its repairs and just kind of get it back into fighting shape as Rowdies like to pretend that they are. So it's great to see that that's happening. But you realize you're so fixated on your own club and your own stadium, you forget kind of what goes around the rest of the league.
Yeah, they had some trouble there at the end of the year where their stadium got a bit messed up. So it's good to see that they'll be able to get back there eventually.
A little underwater, just a bit. But speaking of other comings and goings around the league, do you want to talk about the biggest news, the biggest shot fired across the USL Championship this week?
Yeah, so there was a legendary alleged match. You know, they go hand in hand with the USL Championship, the biggest league in the world. An undisclosed match happened at an undisclosed location. There was an undisclosed player there.
Okay,
who people may know who he is.
First off, before we bury this here, when this happened, like everyone was like, "Why are you making this a big deal?" Like nobody posts this because it was closed. It was a closed door scrimmage. It was against Columbus. Like it doesn't matter. Like why are you announcing this on all your socials? Nobody cared. And then like people started actually joking, like, "Oh yeah, they're off playing Messi FC," and like, "Ha ha ha, wouldn't that be funny?" Well, if you're following along, that's exactly what they did. They went and played against Inter Miami, which saw Lionel Messi take the pitch. The scoreline was officially undisclosed, but allegedly Miami did not walk away with the victory that they were looking to have from the championship side. If you see on the screen, John Morrissey, USL pundit, and like just basically Mr. Knows Everything of the league, had just one of the best zingers I think that we'll ever get in this season. And he wrote, "One of the most decorated players in American soccer," and then Lionel Messi, referencing, of course, Augie Williams, their most recent signing and acquisition at Sporting Lex. What a great feeling, and like what a reward for these championship players to be able to go in and play against one of the greats, even if it was 10, 15 minutes. Like that's got to be just so much fun to be able to say.
It's typical of MLS to parade their washed up European stars around the country like people care about them, when we're not getting the recognition. Nick Marcanish went to La Liga too. Like, what are they doing? Buying old people?
I mean,
selling jerseys?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the transfer fee for Elijah Winder to the Galaxy a little bit later as part of kind of some of the conversation. I don't disagree with you. I think it's interesting that, I almost want to ask ownership the next time we get the chance and say, like, you look at like MLS had phases, right? It had the startup, then it had the Beckham era, and now it has had the Messi era.
Like everything,
right?
It comes full circle.
Right. But like we had Didier Drogba in the league around 2017, 2018. We weren't attached to USL at the time. When will we get that? Like, do we even need that superstar that is, on the wrong side of his soccer playing days and like comes into the league for fun, for the giggles, for the laughs, and then says like, "Okay, I'll play for a season. I'll get, 10% ownership of the entire championship. If it ever goes anywhere, awesome." Like when do we get that? Or do we even need that?
No, but I think there is just to kind of workshop it out for a second here, there is maybe a theoretical path where MLS continues to grow larger. Hashtag not an MLS podcast.
Good thing you called that out.
The growth of soccer in the US continues to grow, where you see the budgets of USL championship teams kind of expand and the level of play increasing, where you could potentially see maybe some of those second tier stars who are like, not world famous, but maybe within certain communities, can kind of sell some tickets and get some butts in seats, as they say.
I don't see why we couldn't do that. It's just more of a, is it necessary? Like, can we grow this thing grassroots? Can we grow it organically? Or do you need those? Because like every time they had one of those players, like the league benefits almost like it's a World Cup cycle, right? Like they just get this massive intake. it doesn't sustain itself, but you still get higher in your return on investment than you did the year prior.
We joke, but like if somehow RAFC had the ability to sign one of the like 1,000 Portuguese players who plays for Wolves, like Wolverhampton, right?
Right.
Like, wouldn't that not be a very big deal? And then maybe kind of rile up some of the community who maybe aren't paying attention to this team because their allegiance lies with Benfica or someone else.
I mean, dude, if we got just someone named Christian Ronaldo, not Cristiano, like people would just show up just for the potential. Like maybe that's really him just hiding. A couple of people in the chat here. Shadow Wolf has a question. We're gonna answer that towards the end then. And then where the living room used to be, I've put out some records. Is that in relationship to the living room, the music venue? I'm assuming it is. Legendary space. Ace the Kangaroo, we got that we didn't get the guy that we played for Phoenix. Yeah, did you want Didier Drogba though? I don't know. And dribble trips don't need the stars. It will come organically, I believe. But this just reminded me how Bad Bunny is potentially looking to create a USL team in Puerto Rico. We're actually going to talk about Bad Bunny in just a second, dribble. So you're beating us to the lead. So that's a perfect segue into you know us, you love us as a not an MLS podcast, but maybe we're going to become not a Nassau podcast tonight. I want to talk, Jason. You know how much I love like the inner workings of the leagues, the soccer pyramid as a whole. I love the constant fight and the drama that unfolds. Have you been paying close attention at all to the Nassau versus MLS antitrust lawsuit?
Not too much. I've seen a article here or there, kind of more of it. I've getting filled in by you.
So it's completely off the rails at this point. What was supposed to happen was that Nassau was claiming that U.S. Soccer had created a non-competitive pact, basically, which subjugated Nassau into being stuck in Division Two and not being able to play at the Division One, right? Claiming so basically it was like an MLM, and U.S. Soccer was was propping MLS up to the top tier and not keeping fair standards for everyone else. And to a certain extent, that was a little truth. Like there was a little bit of truth to that, where when Nassau and other Division 2 or 3 clubs wanted an elevation, U.S. Soccer has at times kind of tried to start the process of moving the goalposts. Like that's undeniable. But where Nassau went further with it and said, like, because you didn't give us Division 1 sanctioning, we became completely just non-profitable, and we had to fold the league because we couldn't sustain ourselves. We needed that D1 sanctioning for the TV rights, for the sponsorship deals, for the access in the FIFA calendar, all of that stuff. So this all happened a long time ago. The league folded in like 2017 and 2018. Since then, owner of the New York Cosmos and Nassau former chairman Rocco Commisso, he's been working on this whole antitrust lawsuit, and it finally boiled over this month. They've been going at it, and it has been crazy. It has just been insane to watch from like the wings. I won't get into the details because that's going to bore people, but I will say at this point, basically the whole antitrust part is completely out the window, and Rocco's just at this point trying to recoup this $500 million lawsuit that he's trying to claim that MLS owes him this money. So we're never going to get fair standards from a U.S. soccer perspective at this point. And that's because of some really damning details that came out this week, really condemning Rocco. One, he was using a fake burner account across all of the social media platforms to attack the MLS and make false claims. He accused Don Carver of being the Harvey Weinstein of U.S. soccer. like that is so crazy. On top of that, he had a media company. I think he still owns a media company, but he then tried to use his media company and all of its partnerships with like Fox Soccer, ESPN, etc. Alexi Lawless, who gets under a lot of people's skin. That's like it's a natural thing from, I get it. He's a redhead. Like it's a natural ability we have. But Alexi said some disparaging things about Nassau. And so then he tried to get Fox to like officially discipline him, maybe even get him removed from his role as an analyst because of how he was putting like Nassau in a bad light back in the day. So like this guy's just not in a good space whatsoever.
Didn't he also admit, like while on the stand, that essentially he is a absent owner, right?
So
like he didn't have a lot of information that he could provide about the league and
So
the
and
teams.
that's where the Bad Bunny part comes in. So that's where it was actually Carmelo Anthony who was propped up as the owner of Puerto Rico FC in Nassau, and they said like, "Hey, like we're gonna put you on trial." So Carmelo Anthony took the stand and basically told everyone like, "I was never an owner. I didn't sink a single dollar into it. I was just told I would have ownership rights if I marketed and hyped the team as like the figure." So he's basically like, he's just a proxy leader. And he's like, I never looked at the books. I never looked at the financials. I never saw any of that. And then they then went further and said, well, you had to have, because guess what? We have an email that said, hey, we're pretty sure Nassau is a money laundering scheme for some of these bribery corruptions that were taking place around the FIFA landscape. So again, the whole thing is just completely untethered. Hey, you're probably asking yourself, oh, go ahead.
So yeah, I was gonna say, hashtag not a Nassau podcast, but so how do we tie this full circle back to the championship and how it relates to USL?
That's why we're talking about this. I promised everyone like there's a reason to it. The whole case, when it was brought forward, you open all of the closets with all of the skeletons. Well, USL gets dragged into it because at that time period, USL had been sanctioned. They were trying to fight for Division 2 status, something that they had been going back and forth competing with Nassau for at the time. So USL's skeletons also got revealed, and like when those got put in public display, USL attorneys had to go, whoa, we need to like subpoena this. We need to lock this down under exclusivity, because it was listing like ownership groups that they didn't want out there. It was listing the financial health of the league. At one aspect, you're like, okay, like why are they so worried about this? Why are they sealing it up? But at the same time, like I get it. Like we don't even know the full ownership group of Rhode Island FC. We know some of them. We probably know a lot of them, but we don't know everybody. Like we still suspect that Ed Sheeran has a control stake in this club, right? Like, and Deadmau5. I firmly believe Deadmau5 is a 1% owner of Rhode Island FC. So having said that, like the lawyers have had to like stay in this and watch these two leagues duke it out. And like every time USL gets involved, like, nope, we're not a part of this. Like, get us out of here. There's conversation that USL will still get dragged through the mud a little bit as like a scapegoat to a certain extent. But for the most part, USL is just like, we're fine. Like we've been Division 2. We're growing our league. We lose clubs still, but like we don't need to blame MLS for that. So it's just been a really ugly affair. It's been really crappy. I don't know if Bad Bunny is still going to want to put a team in for Puerto Rico, considering, fellow Puerto Rican in Carmelo Anthony now is like, I was basically an absentee owner. You got to make sure you want like Despacito FC. I want it, but like, is it going to happen? I don't know. It's just really a shame that everything's happened, and the soccer wars remain alive and well. You can't make that up. I totally forgot to put the graphic up, so I'm going to put it up now. I feel like this is appropriate. Maybe this is the final time we see Nassau, in existence, and the beloved Cosmos. They'll just now be forever a logo and a brand, but no longer a team.
Yeah, I feel like the Cosmos still has some sort of brand viability if the right person got behind it, but maybe people are just afraid to touch it because it's one of those things that if you aren't going to give it the full and proper attention, it's just it's just going to be another one of those Nassau things that just eventually crashes and burns.
Pele died so that we could have soccer in this country, and they just couldn't pull it off.
Legend.
Just couldn't pull it off. Let's jump into more positive news. You ready? Let's move on. Let's get away from the wake, away from the funeral, and let's celebrate the continued life of the U.S. Open Cup. Here for its 110th edition in 2025. This tournament will now host a 96-team field of amateur and professional competition, kicking off on March 18th with the final round on October 1st. If you look here at the screen, you can see all of the different rounds and the way they break out. Rhode Island FC will, of course, enter in round 3 in that April 15th and 16th corridor. I don't know why. I know I said it earlier on, and I said like it would be that Saturday and Sunday that we have off. Totally not the case. I should have remembered that all Open Cup games are played midweek. I don't know why I couldn't. I'm disappointed in myself that I went around and said, "Oh, it's going to be on the 13th on the no, it wasn't. That was dumb of me. I fully admit to that. We enter in round 3. We're going to talk in a second about some of the championship drama that unfolded with this format. But what do you think? Do you think we can get all the way to like a round of 16, a quarterfinal? What are you feeling with this team now in its current state versus where we were only 5 games into the first ever season? The guys were uncoordinated and still trying to figure themselves out. Do we see a deeper run here?
I mean, first off, like it's good to see the tournament continue, right? We were kind of concerned. We didn't know with what the MLS was doing last year if they would continue on or completely pull out this year and just say, no, we're all in on Leagues Cup. That kind of didn't work out too well for them. So I think they kind of are reassessing that. I still think that at some point they would continue to look for other ways to control the competition. But ultimately, I guess it's good to see that some of those teams are coming back. I would think because we have a year under our belt at this point, and we did keep a decent amount of the team together, that we should at least be getting past the first round. From there, it's kind of any man's guess, right? If you run immediately into an MLS team and maybe they're taking it seriously, they put out a full squad, obviously you could still win, but we're looking at a much tougher test. You know, we made it to the final last year. Like, we should be favorites to kind of beat any of the teams below us.
Win something, right?
Like, yeah, at least win a match or two.
Well, so let's talk about it, right? So, again, it's exciting to think that this is coming our way. It is the third longest, I should say, continuously run National Cup competition in the world. I always like just adding that in. Here's where it gets a little sketchy for some teams and the way they had to divide this up, and we'll explain why at the end. Rhode Island FC will join with the 24 championship clubs among a field of the 64 professional teams. But they're going to be doing it in 2 parts. So 16 teams will be taking place and entering in round 3, which is a part of where Rhode Island FC will be entering. And then 8 teams will be entering in that round 1. So we kind of hinted at it last week. We alluded to it. But basically, if you didn't make the playoffs, you are entering in round 1. And guess what team in the New England area in the championship did not make the playoffs last season and will be entering in round 1?
Is that one team, the Dillon FC or something? I think, right?
Galaquis, Sporting Galaquis. Yes. So, spoiler alert: Hartford Athletic will have a longer leg as they have to enter in round 1. Then they have to fight amongst themselves through all of the amateur and open and semi-professional divisions, playing again in round 2 until the population is thinned out, and then the 16 teams from that circuit will advance into the third round, where the other 16 teams join. Listen, all jokes aside, it's worth explaining that the reason the division happened is that with NISA folding and the way they reformatted some of the amateur and semi-pro divisions, they had to make space for just a few extra teams. I think if MLS had committed all of the participating teams to it, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal. But because they couldn't, things change and you move on. Speaking of the teams in, I am not going to list them all, but for anyone that wants to look on the screen, those are the teams that will be here from all of the different leagues across the Open Cup. The one thing I do want to call out as a positive to the MLS is the fact that, one, I totally forgot that Canadian teams aren't eligible to play in the US Open Cup. So, you say like, I want all of the MLS teams there. Well, you've never had all of them, right? Like I think that's kind of ironic. But I want to give some mad props to Charlotte, Houston, Minnesota, New York City, New York Red Bulls, Orlando, and the Portland Timbers for doing the double duty and playing in both the Leagues Cup and the Open Cup. If you remember last year, a lot of the fan bases in their respective clubs, they pushed back when the Open Cup wasn't around. Like, I remember St. Louis, who is in the Open Cup, they said, of these 2 tournaments, we would much rather honor what our fans want and play in the Open Cup only, which they're actually having happen mostly because of their record and what excluded them from Leagues Cup competition this season. But for the other teams that didn't make CONCACAF championship qualification but are still playing in the Leagues Cup, they're still going to be doing this double dip. And like, yes, it's not all the teams, and I know some people are upset about that, but like, that's still pretty impressive. Nevertheless, I want to talk about MLS, but I also want to go back to the championship. Which one do you want? Do you have a comment on the MLS side before we go backwards?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's good to see more teams in the competition, right? I just don't like how U.S. soccer continues to bend the knee for MLS.
Always will, man.
It feels like U.S. soccer should look at the bigger picture and say what is best for the country and soccer development and growth, and not what's best for a billionaires club soccer team in a closed system.
Never gonna
So,
happen.
like in some ways, I'm glad that the competition will continue. But like I had mentioned before, I feel that MLS will continue to find ways to eventually get out. And like, at what point would it cheapen the competition if we continue to make concessions for the MLS? We don't have to go into it right now, but part of me almost wonders about the Jaeger Master Cup. If I did that on purpose.
I know you did, yeah.
If that's almost a test in terms of like, well, we want to have some sort of competition going, that it's not just the league. And if MLS just decides one day, like, later, we're not in this anymore, like, do we have something in place, and do we have the infrastructure to maybe run our own tournament? Especially as USL continues to expand. Like, how many more USL teams, throughout the, 1, 2, and championship are coming in next year? Like,
All of them.
yeah, like all of them, to the point where, like, I don't know if it'd be great for all of US soccer, but there's almost like a whole division of just USL teams at that point.
I don't disagree with you. I think that what has to happen though, it's like at the same time, if MLS did pull out, I wouldn't be upset. Because in all honesty, it's just an easier access to a CONCACAF Champions berth. Now, if we lost that, I would be really upset. But let's remain in the realm of the positive. Let's stick to the points here.
It's still here.
Yeah,
so
they're here for now,
we'll
and it's more
speculate,
teams than it was last year.
later on.
We'll see what happens in 2026, where we find a whole new circuit to complain about or celebrate it. It could go either way. Now, what's really interesting is there is a bit of confusion in this format in this tournament. And I will say that I tried to vet this several times. People asked me on the Discord to like go and confirm this, because I had made a statement. Other people had read another claim, and no one seems to have an accurate consensus at this point. And that is that when we enter in the third round, there will be, of the 16 championship teams that enter as the opponents to the round 2 advancing teams, 8 of them automatically get hosting rights. And those are the top 4 in both the East and the West from the championship last season. So that would be in the, if we go back to the map here, that would be your teams like the Charleston Battery, Detroit City FC, Louisville, and Indy 11, right? So we would not be one of those teams that earn an automatic hosting right. Now, where it gets complicated is that per the USL press release and per the Rhode Island FC press release, it says that it's just the 4 top seeded teams in each conference automatically. Everything else becomes a draw. Everything else becomes a randomized decision. According to a US Open Cup article from the cup.us, the statement there is this: that the other 8 championship teams that did not earn an automatic seeding advancement will be pre-designated as away teams for that match. Now, this is a big deal because if you remember, we were talking about Rhode Island FC having the potential to host a match and get that soft open in early April. For all intent and purpose, and what it sounds like is that the league and Rhode Island FC, they were under the impression that they would be able to compete for the bidding process for that. But if the cup.us is to be believed, and they are the experts when it comes to Open Cup, they know everything, and they're very good at what they do. It would sound like we're automatically locked into an away position for the round 3 lineup, meaning that we would have to play against one of the following teams if they advance. So on the screen, you have, these are all the teams regionally that I kind of have, in my estimations, let's say locked up for the potential of, like, because again, we break these things out as close as possible for travel and logistics purposes. So from that standpoint, what it would appear to be is that we will most likely be playing either Hartford Athletic, the Hearts of Pine, Westchester SC, the Long Island Rough Riders, FC Motown, the New York Shockers, the New Jersey Alliance Football Club, the Renegade FC, and then you've got, not to be confused with Westchester Soccer Club, you've got Westchester United Soccer Club. And even on their Twitter, by the way, they say we're Westchester, not Westchester. And then from the amateur division, you've got NY Pensaprian Freedoms. And then from the open division qualifying rounds, you have CD Filans from the Boston area. So the likelihood is that we will have to go away to play one of these teams if they are successful in advancing into that region. The other team most likely to play as a qualification to the New England or the Northeast would probably be Detroit. They have an automatic hosting right, so it would be one of these teams that we have to play. First, you're looking at these logos, by the way. New Jersey Alliance Football Club has the Statue of Liberty. I'm pretty sure it's located in the New York Harbor on the division side of New York. I don't think that they share that. I don't know if that's true. This is the ultimate sin. New Jersey cannot claim the New York Harbor Statue of Liberty as their icon. Like that just feels really wrong. But also outside of that, I really respect some of the effort some of these clubs have put into their logos, by the way, as amateur or open division teams. So having said that, Jason, and we're going to talk in a second what happens next. Which one of these teams do you want to play? Do you want to play a Jägermeister Cup opponent for the 7th time, or do you want to play one of these amateur or open division teams and crush them in round 3?
I mean, I want to play against what Matthew Jean here is saying, FC Motown's back line of Jackson 5 with a midfield of the Temptations. Amazing.
Guys, what are we doing here? You know that if you put that into the world and then they beat us, do you really like? I mean, have we learned nothing from the Open Cup last year? Spoiler alert: we didn't beat the Charlotte Independents. What are we doing here?
I don't want to play Hartford again for the 63rd time of the season.
But you know what? It almost balances out, right? Like the stars are aligning. I mean, the draw happened this last year, and they tried to make us play. If we get them Jägermeister Cup, we get them at home, and then they get the second leg of the open. Like I could see it happen.
There's a balance of like when you play a team too many times, you're going to get too comfortable, and then we're going to lose to them. So limit the amount of times. At some point, it probably will happen, but let's not let it happen this season.
I don't disagree. Now, there have been some people asking me, and someone said on Twitter, like, why don't we see Vermont Green or Seacoast United Phantoms? I just want to be clear here. Vermont Green did not qualify because of the change in format on how USL2 teams, they had to win their regional cup or trophy to advance into the permission to play the Open Cup, or they had to go up through the amateur ranks, which USL2 teams aren't. So Vermont Green, because they didn't win, were automatically disqualified. Seacoast United Phantoms, who were the winners of the Northeast region, they just don't want to play. They are a team that literally sets up, they're an academy basically that sets up to play during the summer and bring their collegiate talent back in. They're not like, when you look at the Seacoast United Phantoms organization, their academy is probably one of the best academies, not just in New England, but in America. But they don't have any like intent to build it out as a soccer club. Like if you go try to watch a Seacoast game, there's no infrastructure for the most part. There's no desire. They don't stream their games. They don't market their players. Like they just want to build the best player and then sell them or get them ready for their next big step. So they're not interested in trying to field a team in their off season and get things going. It's too complicated for them. At least that's what I've been told. And so they're abdicating from their spot as USL2 winners. So neither one of those teams is competing, one because they can't and one because they don't want to. And that's why you don't see them in. Ironically, and I got corrected online, San Antonio FC also should not be entering in the round of 3. They took 9th place in the West last season, which would make them a round 1 entry. Jason, any guess why they're in round 3 and not round
1? That's a good question. I don't know why.
Rest in peace, Memphis 901.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
San Antonio jumped up. Mm-hmm. And what's weirder, too, is that Lexington joins. They're in the West. You would think, well, do they qualify? They took 9th place in USL 1 last season. So they took 9th. San Antonio took 9th. How do you decide which one of those teams gets to advance? Lexington FC, or Lexington Sporting Lexington, I should say, they take the short stick. They have to enter in round 1. Whereas San Antonio gets this gift of, hey, we'll let you skip 2 rounds and play in round 3.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way it's fair with Lexington like being the new kids on the block coming up from the lower division. To be like, yeah, here you go.
Isn't US Open Cup so much fun? The best. It's just the best. Now, moving on though, let's talk in the land of positivity for a second. Well, we don't know if we have hosting permissions in round 3 or not. According to the cup, we don't. So we'll have to be traveling away. So for supporters, be prepared to travel. Again, it's regional. So for all of you who are going to the Westchester game for the Jägermeister Cup, you may need to pencil in that April I've already forgotten the date. What, 13th? 14th? Help me out here. It is
15, 16?
April
Yeah, there we
15th and 16th. There you go. You may need to pen in April 15th and 16th as a road trip to support for the Open Cup away. It should be somewhat closer. But let's just live in the land of positivity. We get our first win in the US Open Cup in club history. We advance on to round 4, where MLS enters. According to the Cup, the same problems are in place for the MLS teams, where it was their 8 highest teams in their playoff structure that are participating in the Open Cup. They get automatic seeding rights. The bottom 8 get automatic away team rights. Guess where the New England Revolution, who are a part of this tournament, where they landed on the table last season?
How did they do last year?
Didn't do great. Did not do great. They did bad enough that they are going to be, according to this, a designated away position. They are our closest local region. If you look at how the MLS regions would be broken out here, it's most likely going to be the cluster of New York City, New York Red Bulls, Philadelphia Union, and the New England Revolution. The Union are the only team in that cluster that have seating. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, they're the only team in that cluster that have seating rights because they were one of the top 4. So, having said that, you're looking at the opportunity here for Rhode Island FC. Like, perfect world. We go away to Hartford. Let's just assume that that's the game. I don't want it, but let's just assume we beat Hartford. We come back. We host the New England Revolution at Tidewater for the 4th round Open Cup. Do we dare to dream, Jason? Do we dare
Amazing.
to dream?
Sign me up. Let's do it.
Would you want it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because fans of the New England Revolution right now are saying this would be our Super Bowl, and I kind of agree with them because, like, for them, like, they have to come to us. They would have to deal with the stupidity of our supporter group, our fan base, just wanting to be that scrappy underdog that says, like, it doesn't matter if we win or lose today. We're gonna stick it to you and your fans for 90 plus minutes, and like let the gods decide where things fall. For the Revolution, there's no like advantage in playing, especially away.
Yeah, if they win, well, of course you're in the MLS. You should have won, right? So, but if for RAFC, if they go out there, our fans are louder, put on a better performance, regardless of what the outcome is. Like, it just makes us look that much better,
Quick comment update. Ace the Kangaroo, New York Renegades. What a name! I agree.
Yeah.
Matthew Jean, feed me the Revs. I listen. Here's the real thing. We still don't know. We're relying on the fact that the Cup's usually right. If we don't have hosting in round 3, then yeah, I want that. I want that 100%. Here's the hypothetical for you and for the chat. If you could host in round 3, let's assume that's not off the table, but then that removes your chances of hosting in round 4, which could also then remove your chances to see the New England Revolution. Would you do it? Would you take the hosting in round 3 so you get the win? Tidewater gets their soft open that they're probably looking just to make sure all the bugs, all the kinks are worked out. Would you do that, or would you hold on for the hope? Do you, like I said, do you dare to dream?
I would dare to dream. I'd rather host the Revs.
Suddenly, Hartford's like an okay match to have to deal with, then, isn't it?
Yeah, I just don't want to see, like, we play them too often. I'd rather go somewhere else.
I wouldn't mind going to Hearts of Pine for the Open Cup. That would be
Yeah.
fun. They come down for Jaeger. We go up to them for the Open Cup. That's what I want. That's what I want. That, or one of these like New York independent amateur teams, just so I can see like what are the Long Island Rough Riders even made of? Like what's your deal? What's going on? So that's the Open Cup. I'm excited either way. So pencil in all of those dates on your schedule. Who knows what we'll see in terms of reality? I just hope that we go further than we did last season. Yeah.
Yeah. At least one win.
All right.
I'm asking for.
Well, then let's move on.
Yeah, so we have some contract extension news here. So Rhode Island FC announced it has re-signed forward Noah Fuson to a multi-year contract extension pending league and federation approval. The 25-year-old Los Angeles, California native returns to RAFC for a second year after taking home the USL Championship's Golden Playmaker Award with a league-leading 11 assists in 2024. We couldn't be happier to keep Noah in the Ocean State for years to come, said RAFC head coach and general manager Connell Smith. From his relentless work ethic to the positivity he adds to the locker room and in the community, Noah is an example player that embodies what our club stands for. Fuson had a career year during his fourth professional season in 2024, dishing out career high 11 assists and adding a team third best 9 goals in 37 appearances. His 18 total goal contributions led RAFC during a historic inaugural season, including a red hot stretch of 9 goal contributions in the final 6 games of the season. His 11 assists led the USL Championship, earning him the league's Golden Playmaker Award following the conclusion of the regular season. I am incredibly thankful for this opportunity and so happy to be staying in Rhode Island, said Fuson. I can't wait to build on our historic inaugural season and bring home some more hardware in 2025. It is an honor to be a part of the club and to be able to give back to the Rhode Island community.
I have some details about this, but I want to start with, we got a chance to talk with him and connect upon his return from being back in LA, getting ready for preseason. And I forget who mentioned it, but someone's like, yeah, like there's a picture of you on the billboard of him, excuse me, going and doing like one of his little. I look like he's in the middle of a bike. He's just doing a bicycle kick. He's like, wait, I'm on a billboard. It's like, oh yeah, man, you've been on a billboard for months. Like you are the marketing arm. You're the poster boy right now. He's like, where is this? I was like, it's literally on many different places because it's one of those digital billboards. And so he's like, you got to send it to me next time. So ironically, I was looking for an opportunity to take it. I had one, but the picture was blurry because I was driving and I probably shouldn't have been trying to take a photo while driving. But someone in the chat, in the chat
runs
took
red
one.
lights, takes pictures.
Listen, I didn't say I was perfect. Okay. But someone in the Discord had submitted. So I flipped it back to him and he's like, oh man, billboard famous. Like that's when you made it, like I don't have a billboard, I don't even think Buddy Cianci ever had a billboard about him, not that he needed one. But anyways, jokes aside, I want to explain the nuance of what this means because it's a multi-year deal. Initially we thought that this was something where it was potentially an addition to his contract option being picked up last season because the club did express that they were moving forward with his contract pickup, and then we thought this may have been a negotiation in addition to, but we did confirm back with the club that in essence this multi-year deal wipes or basically tears up the contract extension from the, let's call it the beginning of the offseason last year, and this just resets. So as a multi-year, assume it's a 2-year plus 1 club option at a minimum. I think that most of these clubs are probably operating on the minimums. We will see Noah Fuson in amber and blue for the 25 and 2026 seasons with that club option in 2027. So there's a likelihood that we could see him all the way up until 2028. But the reality of this is, it'd be like if you ask kind of anyone that's watching, this guy has so much upswing and so much potential. This is just a mechanism to increase his value and what the club can profit off of a future sale. The worst case scenario here is if there's zero growth, he doesn't move on. He doesn't like the best we're ever going to get is, 11 assists for the season and, 9 goals. Like, okay, fine. That's still perfect. And he never progresses further. Yeah. Then we still have him locked in basically till 2028. Outside of that, this is where we get one of those Elijah Winder deals. And we make 400,000 selling him onto an MLS club, which by the way, breaks all the records. And I never thought it would be Elijah Winder that just completely dismantles the transfer record fees that we've seen. MLS clubs are starting to suit, and they're looking for players and talent within the league.
Wasn't that just to MLS though? Wasn't the so his brother was technically the bigger deal, right?
I'm sorry, I'm talking domestically.
Okay, yeah, domestic deal. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at was it Fidel Barajas, Charleston Battery the year before went to Real Salt Lake. He just got sold on to one of the teams in Liga MX, and it was $4 million. And Charleston had a 25% sell-on clause. They just made up $1.2 million off that deal.
I mean, if USL can find a way to get sell-on clauses on there, like potentially the Chicago Fire could get some millions back from John Duran, who could be sold to the Middle East for like 77 million, and apparently Chicago Fire might get like 8 or something. So I mean, it's good business. Keeps the league afloat.
Very good business. So listen, it's exciting to see Noah stay. Honestly, I think he's just one of those players that fans need to get under the acceptance that we will lose him before we want to, and that's the nature of this type of business, is that you don't want to hold on to a player till they're too old, they're not worth it, they're injured, it's a selling business, especially in a developmental league like what the USL has become. And when you develop like this, unfortunately, that means that you may have to sell players at inopportune times. I mean, look what happened to Steven Turnbull. That was a selling decision at the end of the day. The club made the money or saw a conduit to what they needed to accomplish. No one would deny that Turnbull wasn't a decent player and a good fit for the squad, but they had to do business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the thing that everyone really wants to listen to and talk about, and that is the preseason check-in for Rhode Island FC. Last week was their first open practice after the team checked into medical, and unlike last season, all of the players were present, including the recent additions of Maxi, Ugo, Danny, and Taimu. We're going to talk about Ugo Bacharach because it is not Hugo. One of the fans from Minnesota United FC reached out and said, hey, like, you're not saying his name right. He's a Spaniard, so you gotta, the H is basically silent there. So for anyone that wants to participate in celebrating him, it is Ugo, not Hugo. So just remember that for the future. But in addition to the new faces, there were a lot of invitees in the group, including the previously mentioned PC players that we had seen last week in some of the warm-up videos, as well as a bunch of players, though, that I honestly couldn't recognize. The club wouldn't tell me, and when I tried to like sneak over to afterwards to like get access to players, they made sure that those players were the first ones off. Like they were like crowd controlled off the practice field so that you couldn't get any access to them. We're going to talk about here. We have a couple of actual player interviews to go over here in a second. But what I want to jump on kind of to start, though, is the immediacy of the injured players that are coming back. So if it shouldn't be new news to you, but Isaac Anking still recovering from his torn ACL. Jackson Lee, who's been recovering from his lower leg injury after getting in a freak accident stepping on the field in Colo Spigs right before the final. He actually had to miss his trip. He had a whole thing planned, I think, in Germany, and he had to like completely change plans because you can't.
Yeah, I think his dad was telling us after the match. That sucks.
Yeah, you just can't go out and adventure on a bum leg. And then the most interesting one, though, as a bit of a surprise, is Ugo Bacharach. I'm still not sure if I'm saying. I'm gonna have to practice multiple times, but he's also coming back from the mend. It was really unclear at the time if it was like an unnecessary precaution, something that he was coming back from an injury. I couldn't quite tell, but he wasn't training with the first team. He was off to the side doing the recovery stuff, dedicated recovery stuff, unlike Anking and Lee, who were just kind of put off to the side and like kicking a ball back and forth. I did a little bit of research on Ugo, and he did tear his meniscus last season in April. So this could be a bit of a nagging injury coming back from that. I'm not quite sure yet. The club hasn't released any additional details. I mean, he was still kicking. He was still juggling the ball. He just wasn't doing a lot of running, just some like light jogging. If you saw in the pictures, he did have a compression sleeve around his knee. So, more to come on that. I don't think we would have signed a player that like we couldn't have available within the first, month or two. But again, remember, like we signed players like JJ Williams, Anking himself was injured, Connor McGlynn was injured, AST was injured. So like I'm sure there's the value here that we see, but it was a bit of a surprise to see one of our newest signings not really in the mix just yet. And I will say this about Ugo. I mean, his height, it's listed, but that guy, like, he's just tall. He makes Connor Smith look short. That's how tall he is.
Nice.
I want to ask you, though, Anking, we saw him training, we saw him practicing. dude looks like he's ready to integrate back into the roster tomorrow. Are we surprised by that? Should we have seen Isaac Yanking this mobile this soon?
I think he's realistically still a little ways out, but that's good to see that he looks to be in good shape. That means I would think that there's no setbacks then at this point, and he just kind of needs to get back to match fitness, but kind of ease himself back in so he doesn't re-aggravate the injury.
Yeah, I think we saw Amos said he was cleared for duty at the end of August, but he didn't see playing time until like the last game of the regular season in October. So this is something that I'd rather Anking take the time and make sure he's strong enough and healthy enough that this doesn't become
It's
a
a
problem
long
or
season,
reoccurring.
so
Right.
yeah.
But then again, too, if we can't score goals, come May, maybe our tune will change a little bit. So that's it. The team is preparing to head down to Bradenton, Florida, for their IMG Academy sessions here in a week or so. I don't know if the club will be doing any kind of like away bon voyage like they did the last year, kind of like trying to get everyone inspired and pumped for the team and for the supporters group. If we hear anything, we'll definitely put it out in socials and kind of go from there. But we do have some interviews that we want to share. So from here, we're just going to kind of play them out in their entirety. They're basically raw and unedited, just so that you guys can get a sneak peek behind the scenes of what goes on these and just listen along. Some of the stuff you may have already heard from other media outlets posting it or articles written, but it's just kind of always fun, I think, to kind of share and showcase those. So we'll start with Noah Fuson, and then kind of go from there. And if you guys have any questions along the way, let us know. But enjoy Noah here.
Your thoughts on what's been going on over there, and everyone that's there.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously terrible what's happening, but thankfully my family and all my friends and loved ones are all safe. So I'm super grateful for that. But my hat goes off to all the first responders and all the people that are helping deal with all that stuff. So praying for them and their families, and that everyone just stays safe.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of community, outreach and something like that. But people watching, anything they can do to help.
Yeah, no, just continue to support. The first responders, the people that are risking their lives to try and keep us and our houses and our families safe. So just continue to support.
On this team, what's been the message? You come back, you did a lot in year one, but nobody cares about that when you come back this past week. So what's been the message from coach and from the leaders of this team to the rest of the group?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. Last year's over. It means nothing now. It was a good season, but it's behind us. So now it's about repeating and doing what we did last year, but finishing the job.
What can I was gonna say, what can this team take, even though it was a new group trying to form a rapport with each other, and now it's year two. What can you learn from last year?
Yeah, no, I think we built a really strong foundation over the course of last year, and I think we still have that same foundation here, and you can feel the energy on day one. Everyone's buzzing to be back around each other with the coaches playing again, and just with a little chip on our shoulders that we got so far, but we didn't finish the job, and I think everyone's just ready to go already.
Noah, you've been working like crazy in the off season. Just been workout videos, practice drills nonstop. I don't think you took a vacation. What are you working on personally in your skill set and your development growth to contribute to year two?
Yeah, I just worked on whatever I thought would help me be able to contribute more to the team winning. So my finishing, my crossing, setting up my teammates. That was all stuff that I was focused on in the off season to hopefully contribute more and help us to win more games next year.
Coach said about you in the offseason that they didn't expect you to have as breakout of a season as you did. You became the golden playmaker, one of the most important pieces of offense. Coach also said earlier today that a lot of the people that drive the offense forward weren't even here in the preseason, with JJ laid up and Chico not here yet. Is it an even more important factor for you now, seeing all of the offensive side of the team being here earlier and gelling and getting ready for the season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having everybody here for preseason, it's 2 months together that we didn't have together last year because people were doing different things, different pieces were missing. But having everybody here and having this time to try new things, experiment, and really find which ways we click the best is going to be huge for us and huge for our success this year.
Obviously, you got the new addition of Maxi. Overall, I know it's early, but what's it been like playing with him, and just how much of an impact do you think he can have on this team?
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely a baller, top guy, fit straight in with all the boys. The energy's been great. And, on the field, you can see why they brought him in. His quality, it shows every time he gets the ball, off the ball, his work rate. He really encompasses what we're trying to do here at Rhode Island. So, yeah, he's been a great addition so far.
You said he plays a little bit out of the box. He kind of, from a 6 to an 8 to a 10, he likes to find space. How do you play with a guy who can do things that sometimes out of the box that you kind of have to get on the same wavelength as him? How do you kind of work with him to get the best out of each other?
Yeah, I think that's what this preseason, portion of the year is for, and having this 2 months where everyone's together, we'll learn each other's tendencies and, what he likes to do and where he likes to operate and, work off each other and find a chemistry that is the most effective for us to win games.
How long does that take? It must take a few exhibition games at least, right, to figure out, or maybe a few regular season games.
Yeah, I mean, it could be today we figured it out. It could be in a week or two, but it's definitely we're getting on the same page slowly but surely. So by the time season comes, we'll be ready to go.
After being here last year and seeing the fan base grow, how much are you looking forward to the home opener?
Yeah, we're counting down the days, every single IFC letters, and we're just itching to get in there and put on a show for the fans and have somewhere to really call like our home.
So that is Noah Fuson. Jason, curious your thoughts. Anything kind of stick out? Obviously, some questions in the chat. One, yes, Noah's family is fine. They were a little bit at risk in the Eaton fire, but they were completely fine. The fire blew a different direction. So lots of check-ins during that period. And then Tim McDuff was the media presence this year. Was it last year? Was it the same? There was a difference. Sorry, I can't read questions. I'm trying. Yeah, no, there was definitely more camera people. They're there for sound bites. They're there for the attention piece, which is important. The team and the league need the news stations especially to get into that. But like dedicated soccer coverage wise, definitely starting to probably not build in the direction it needs to. It felt like Sam Minton from the Blazing Musket and I were the only two there to talk more about like the day-to-day of a preseason versus the comings and goings of talking points like, hey, you're here again, welcome back, and how important is the season and the stadium. So Noah said finish the job twice. Maybe. Jason, any takeaways? I mean, it's all pretty boilerplate from him. Anything stand out to you in that?
We've seen it before, but it always surprises me how well spoken Noah is. I think it's funny how when you asked him about what he's working on, he wouldn't give you any specifics. Maybe he's trying to keep that close to the chest. Don't want anyone to get a leg up on him, but it's good to see that he is excited and ready for the season that's coming up.
Noah's always an interesting character. When I asked him during the playoffs, like, hey, you'd mentioned in our interview that you had your own internal metrics, your own internal targets and goals. You wouldn't share them then. We're in the playoffs now. Like you've either already hit them or you haven't. Like, what are they? And he just kind of like shyishly like grinned at me. And this is before the Charleston game. And so like I still don't know what his own internal like evaluation of himself is, and nor should I. That's his own business.
Wants to keep it to himself. Maybe it's one of those things where certain people don't want to put it out there to the ethos and just kind of self-reflect.
You said you'd score 17 goals and you only scored 18, you liar. So anyways, here's the newest signing, attacking midfielder Maxi Rodriguez.
It's been good. I think it's always a challenge to change clubs, but it's been a smooth transition, just being able to be with the guys, trained with a couple of them before the season started. So yeah, it's been a nice transition, and so far I love it.
Who do you know who was on the team?
I've known Zach for quite a while. I know met Isaac a couple seasons ago, but even just meeting them off and on the field before was cool. But Joe went to the same university as me, so he's a bit younger, so I met him when I went back to visit. But yeah, it's cool knowing some of the guys.
What was your impression of Rhode Island FC coming here, just knowing what they accomplished in their first season last year?
Yeah, speaking to Con on the offseason, knowing that they were building something special, and for me in the offseason it was really important to look at the project and what they were building, not only that they went to the final, but the team that they have, the stadium that they're building, almost done being built. Like, it's just something special brewing here, and I wanted to be a part of it for sure.
Maxi, you're a living legend with Detroit City, coming up through the ranks and propelling that club to so much glory. Big deal for you to transition here to Rhode Island FC. What propelled you to join this club? What motivated that transfer?
Yeah, I think it comes a time where you might need something new. I think for me as a player, I always want to be on my toes and maybe want to explore a bit and be challenged in certain ways. And like I said before, I think speaking to Kano, how excited he was to not only build something special to get wins, but also build that culture that's so important. And felt like I can come and try to add to an already good team. So yeah, hoping I can add whatever I can.
And what were your thoughts when you played against them last season? It was a new club, an expansion club at that point. You're now here in year 2, but it's a sort of expansion in and of itself with the new stadium. What's the environment? You've seen clubs grow from nothing to something. You're kind of in that now again. What's that like for you?
Yeah, I think every club and every team is different, and even playing them at the beginning of last year, I think they were struggling to begin the year, but like a new club, I was a part of that before, and it's tough to find your feet, understand, build relationships. You don't have that time like other clubs do, but as time went on, you could tell that they were gaining momentum. I think just looking at how they ended the season, that was a team that you didn't want to play against, and they went on the road and won playoff games and showed why they were such a good team. So yeah, it's nice to be on the other side and play with some of these guys. So I'm excited.
And if you score goals against Detroit City, will we see any celebrations?
No celebration. No, I think they did so much for me and propelled my career to a point where I was at the verge of retiring, and they gave me a shot, and I thought, hey, one more year and I'll hang them up. But God's got a bigger purpose for me, and Detroit gave me that platform. So it's always love for Detroit, and yeah, nothing against them if I score.
What can you bring? Kano was saying he wants more guys on the ball who can break defenses down when things get tough. What can you bring to this team that can help them create more offense? Because that was their one issue last year, was just creating more offense, especially early in the season.
Yeah, I think obviously I like to be a player that's kind of different and do different things, but I also think with the players that they have, and now that they have a year established building relationships, I think other players are gonna thrive as well. So hoping I can add in any way, and I think my style of play is kind of weird and out of the box. So just try to be myself, build relationships on and off the field, and kind of just find my role within.
What does that mean? That you out of the box and weird? What does that?
Yeah, I think sometimes my ability to kind of find spaces and run all over the place and kind of confuse people. It's not really a traditional form of playing either the 8 or 10 or 6, but yeah, I like to find areas, try to use my legs as much as I can while I'm still decently young. So yeah, just try to find spaces that other people don't see or make people uncomfortable in their defensive position.
And I guess it's kind of too, obviously the team performed, so well last season. I guess how do you kind of manage, or how do you kind of hope to, continue to add to the success that Rhode Island has and maybe live up to some of those expectations that were built last year?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of trying to be myself, but also being the person that the team needs me to be. I don't want to come in and disrupt and say, hey, I have to play my way or that's it. I think I have to be able to mold and be what the team needs me to be, and hoping I can help the team, whether it's certain positions, being a leader, doing stuff off the field. So yeah, just trying to find my role and not something to disrupt, but maybe add to whatever I can.
And just kind of overall, it's early days, but just what's it been like kind of, working with Kano, and just overall what's he like as a head coach?
Yeah, it's been nice. It's been fun. I think he's given me that freedom to kind of find my role as well. I think I don't have any restrictions in that case, but I think as the season goes on, he can guide me a little bit more to be who he needs me to be. But I think right now he's kind of giving me the freedom to find my feet in a new group, because you need to have that time. So as much as I can have time on and off the field, I think it'll help.
Thank
you so much.
All right, so that was Maxi Rodriguez. Jason, at first initial impressions there.
Good interview there. I guess the way he talks about himself, and we kind of know this and maybe touched on it before, but we assume he'll be a 10 in essence and sit behind the two strikers. But the way that he talks about, 6, 8, and 10, and kind of being that non-traditional style player, I'm curious as the season goes on, will we see him try it, like maybe tested in some of those further back roles? Will he almost be like that quarterback that we thought Connor McGlynn could be, in essence? Because I think Maxi Rodriguez is a much different player in terms of the amount of mileage he's going to put on his legs, right? And that's not to say that Connor doesn't have an engine in him, but he's just not that style, right? He didn't have that dog in him, right? He wasn't going to go after everybody the way that you can see Maxi So I'll be curious as we progress through the season if we do see him employed in some different roles and how the team kind of gets, I don't want to say built around him, but where he's given this opportunity to almost find what his role is within that kind of midfield three that we have there.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, you don't normally hear. I actually just said the word I was going to say. He said that he plays weird, right? And that he's looking for a little bit of freedom to find his spot. You know, I don't know what will be his piece here, but I do know that some of my favorite players of all time have always been players that don't sit rigid in a formation or a structure. I'm going to say Landon Donovan, not just for his MLS participations, but also in his U.S. soccer time. You can call him the midfielder. You can say he was a left midfielder. You could say he was a
Second
central midfielder. He was a
striker,
cam. He was a striker. Really, the reality was he was just on the pitch, and like, he would contribute in a way that he wanted to float around. And like, I always often thought of him as like the free jazz soccer player. And so I see that a little bit in what Maxi's trying to do. And if you remember too, Maxi had to rise to the occasion for Detroit last year because they didn't really have a through and through striker. They didn't have a dedicated person that like they could really rely on. So often Maxi would have to take the ball and move it up the field or collect the ball higher up into the opponent's third and try to produce some sort of attacking threat. I think this is excellent. And the key point to it too is remember, Kano loves the versatility of players being able to play in multiple positions all the time, right? Like, that's something that he thrives in. So Maxi being able to be a 6, an 8, a 10, a goalkeeper, like, it just sounds like the sky's the limit for it. Matt Jean asks, is this the USL player acquisition of the offseason? And the correct answer is yes, this is the signing. And we did it so early. Like, we knew we went out and won this player. So it was fantastic. Harry writes in, evening Raising Anchor Pod from San Antonio. Well, evening to you too. We can't wait to see you on 5-3 when you come to our dojo, and we will show you no mercy. Anything else before we move on?
No.
All right, let's get on to Coach Kano Smith.
The guys who signed, what's the biggest thing you take away from last year that we need to be better at this? What's the biggest takeaway that you look at?
Everything. Just always trying to get better in all components of the game. But yeah, I'm sure you could break down. If you really wanted to get to the details, attacking wise, we didn't score the most in the league. We didn't concede the least amount of goals in the league. We weren't the best in set pieces, deliveries. So yeah, it's always so many areas to improve. I couldn't just point out one right now. Just trying to overall improve the quality of the roster.
And Connor, you accomplished that with the signings you made?
Yeah, so far. I mean, until you play a real match, you don't really know. You can't really tell. I mean, other teams got better too. So yeah, we think we got better, but in the grand scheme of things, does that mean anything? I don't know until we play somebody.
And kind of obviously an impressive first season. So I guess just overall, how do you build, off of an impressive first season and maybe live up to those expectations?
Yeah, I mean, just try to get better every day. Really try not to focus on outcomes. We didn't focus on outcomes last year. We just try to get better as a group every single day, improve every individual player every single day. And then I say it all the time, but what's meant to be for us is meant to be. We can't control what we can't control. Everybody else has the same goals as trying to win the championship too. It's only one team that can do that. It's Colorado. So yeah, we set the expectations that we have to be better than we were last year. If we don't win the whole thing, then we failed. So yeah, if you live by those outcomes, set yourself up to fail.
Coach, have you talked with the front office, with the ownership group, with your team about the definition of success for this season? It's a first year now at Tidewater. Obviously, you were runner-ups in the USL Cup final. What does that look like for you personally and for this team?
Just continue to grow the club. I think there's teams that didn't make the playoffs last year. There's teams that obviously didn't make the final, didn't win, but was it not successful or not? I think we were successful. Obviously making the final was a nice outcome, but I think there's way more other barometers that made us successful. We were good in the community first and foremost. We had good guys that didn't cause any trouble in the community. We grew a fan base. We made people believe in something special for building into next year. So yeah, ultimately I think we're all aligned and on the same page that obviously we will want to win and win the championship. And if we don't, does that mean we fail? I don't think so. I don't think we think so. Because ultimately it comes down to moments, and there were 3 moments in the game that Colorado were better than us. So yeah, just continue to grow every day and get better every single day.
When you look at the team culture you established last year, what from that do you want to carry over to this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot, like culture is definitely a buzzword. And I try not to use it, but we talk about it a lot because if you don't talk about it, then it forms itself. So we have to form it to how we want. But I think the biggest takeaway from our culture was our togetherness and the group. And even the people that didn't play and didn't dress in the final, they were still there supporting the teammates. So to me, that's what a coach is to be, is supporting each other and supporting each other to help to the overall success of the group.
How much is that May 3rd home opener date kind of circled in your brain?
Well, to be honest, not really, because we got 6 games on the road before that. So, yeah, I get it. It's a great question, but yeah, honestly, I'm really trying to figure out how we're going to navigate those first 6 difficult games. Like, that's a tough stretch. So it's definitely circled and it's definitely in the back of my head, but yeah, it seems very, very far away right now.
Way back
For
of the
that,
head.
How do you prepare for a 6-game road trip? I mean, you play games in the West, but how do you prepare for that right now to get yourself ready for a grueling start to the season away from home?
Like you would 1 week at a time, just worried about, obviously keeping our eyes on our first game, which is Charleston. They play before us, so we'll get to look at them. But yeah, I try not to look at it as the whole 6-game stretches. If you do, you drive yourself crazy. So just 1 game at a time, just be right. Everything we do now should prepare us for Charleston, and we play them on March 15th.
Yeah, for this team last year, obviously being the inaugural season, to build some type of chemistry. 16 players back from last year's team. How important is this time of the year for you guys as you head into year number 2?
Yeah, it's really important because I think it's preseason is where you lay the foundation. So obviously being in here, it's a little bit more constricted and tight. So we'll get to Florida and get to be outside in some nicer weather. But yeah, it's critical. And, as we look back to last year's preseason, we had a lot of our attack was missing. JJ didn't play until May. Albert met us in Bermuda late February. So it's nice to have everybody here and ready to go really early, because then we can get really deep into some of the ideas and the concepts that we want the team to have. So I think right now we're further ahead than we were last year in preseason. And yeah, hopefully it just takes some less time to gel than it did last year.
Coach, some new faces on the squad this year: Taimu Okiyoshi, Daniel Rivera, and of course Maxi Rodriguez. What were the player profiles that you were looking for? What are these guys offering to the team that was either absent or is an upgrade for you here in year 2?
I think the 3 that you mentioned are really excellent on the ball. Like, I think we needed to improve with the ball at our feet and being technical and being able to break down opposition and be able to play through them. So I think those 3 guys and Hugo as well, that's all the strength. So I think we tried to get, you're always trying to get better athletes and better soccer players, but I think we got players that are better with the ball, so to speak. Not to say that the guys that left us weren't, but I think the 4 that we added, is it only 4? Yeah, the guys that we added are really, really good in possession.
And is this more of like getting better at what you were doing already last season, or could we see some incremental change and improvement in terms of tactics this season?
I'm sure things will change, but ultimately I think we are who we are. Different players have different strengths and weaknesses, so I think we'll adapt to that. But tactically, again, for me, whether we play 3, whether we play 4, I don't think it really matters. I think if you just were to strip back everything and look at how they play and how they compete and how they try to win the ball back, how we try to go about scoring goals, like, you should be able to identify a Rhode Island FC team.
Can you go through the decision to transfer Turnbull?
Yeah, I just think it was a good situation for everybody. We felt we were deep in that position. We brought in players that could play there. There's players on our roster that can play there, and ultimately we thought it was a good situation for Steven too, a club that I know fairly well, and I know how they play. So yeah, we just thought it was a good situation for all parties. But yeah, we wish him the best. He was a key part of what we did last year.
In terms of last year and turning the page, what kind of tone do you set to these guys to maybe remind them, like, you can't rest on those laurels? Not every team makes it to the final in 1 year. Like,
yeah, I don't think we have any laurels to rest on. We didn't win, so it's still plenty to go for and win until we achieve the ultimate goal, which is winning the championship. I don't think we're in any position to rest. Everybody is getting better. The league's getting more aggressive. Teams have went out and spent more money to get better, and more quality players have entered the league. So it's always what we did last year means absolutely nothing going into this year.
Coach, final question for you. Any new challenges you'll be facing with the introduction of the Jägermeister Cup? The format's different in inter-tournament season. What's your mindset going to that as those games will approach pretty quickly here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different challenge. I don't think anybody knows what it's going to be. Like, I think every coach is trying to figure out, and it's not replacing games, like it's not midweek games or it's not an extra game, but it is different challenges. You're playing League One teams, so ultimately when you play teams that they're probably higher than in the pyramid, like, they get 10% better. Like we found out last year, right? So Charlotte was really good against us, and they beat us when at a period in time that we weren't good. But the other challenges are we have to play Detroit 3 times, we have to play Pittsburgh 3 times. So yeah, it's as you go deeper into the tournament, hopefully we get to that stage. It's more midweek games, so I guess it's the unknown, but I think it's fun. I think it'll be a fun thing, just more silverware to be able to go out and to compete for.
And Connor, in that tournament, you're going to be playing Portland Hearts of Pines, Hartford Athletic, I guess. What's it like to continue to kind of see, soccer clubs pop up in New England, kind of the soccer community, if you will, kind of continue to grow in the region?
Yeah, it's good. I think if you go around the world, again, if you were to go to London or Manchester or Birmingham, any big city in the UK, like you have those situations where you don't even have to drive. Like I think that's the unique situation about our country. It's like basically we have to fly to every game. So 20, 30 years down the line, if you ever got to a point where you don't have to really fly to travel to games, I think it's amazing. So yeah, I think it's really good. Portland's doing a really good job. Another coach, Bobby, will play them in preseason a couple of times, play them in a regular season. So yeah, I think it's fun. It's logistics wise, it saves us a lot of headaches having to not fly to games because it's really difficult to fly to games. So yeah, Boston is only a plus. So yeah, really looking forward to those games and those matches.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. So that was Coach Cano Smith. Interestingly enough, Jason, that was a almost 10-minute interview, and I didn't want to break it up because you could kind of hear the stream breaking down a little bit. Initial thoughts. I've got a couple things I want to talk about, but what were your thoughts, your takeaways?
I really like his mentality when it comes to the away games, because it does sound pretty daunting to say you're going to go on a 6 away game stretch. But if you just look at it game by game and just say, what are we doing this weekend? We're going playing these guys. Cool. Get through that. Focus on that. Next week, all right, what are we doing this week? Kind of don't let the bigger picture kind of like mess up your mindset. Just take it one game at a time.
I think that's spot on. I did appreciate the reporter who was like, well, you just did it though in the playoffs, so like just keep doing that. Like the stakes are not as high when the whole table is either in front of you or behind you. It just it's like early on you don't want to give up points, right? Because that can haunt you. But at the same time, people will probably prioritizing just getting to know each other and playing their best game. I wanted to talk about his definition of success. He was very adamant about saying, of course, he wants to run it back. Every club wants to, but only one gets to win it all. It was interesting to hear his different levers for how he measured success. Like my guys didn't cause any
fans getting triggered by lever stuff.
But no, it was like my guys didn't cause any problems in the community. Like I've never thought of that before. Like I mean, it's really important. Like, yeah, you want to be able to make sure, but then also like what clubs has Cano been a part of, either as a coach or was he like a bad boy at the Revolution causing problems in the local communities? Like I've never had to think about that, but it's one of those things you appreciate from the mentality of like being a general manager and a head coach.
I think it's probably more of a bigger kind of league problem where you have players getting caught drunk driving and things like that in England, and then they're all over the tabloids, and it probably happens in all the other countries as well too. I remember Arturo Vidal was driving a Lambo drunk somewhere in Brazil or something at one point, but I don't know about in US soccer if that's really a problem we have yet.
Sure.
We haven't gotten to the size of the NBA or the NFL yet where random news about some player is a big deal. One day.
No, I mean, I always appreciate that kind of like sneak peek behind the way someone thinks. And he even said like there's other he didn't outright say we're not going to compete, because he's absolutely going to compete for the final, for that championship win. But there's a lot of other important requirements in this second, first year, if you will. It was just good to see that like he's not holding himself to anything other than just the highest standard, and he's going to do everything he can across all of the different avenues that he has to deliver on. He's the guy that will also promise, like, he's not going to promise you a win, right? But he's gonna make sure everything has meaning behind it, and I just love that he's remaining consistent to it. Steven Turnbull, I didn't realize this when we first talked about it. Getting transferred down to Birmingham, that is his former club. Like, that probably, it makes me now kind of wonder, like, if they were going to do business, like, why not find him a home that makes the most sense? Birmingham is definitely packing some serious offensive and defensive firepower now this season. That actually, I'm starting to think less that this was like a bad deal or like, bad intention. I think this is just good for all parties.
Yeah. It was interesting to hear him say that he feels that we are strong in terms of positioning there. I'm just curious, like, in his mind, who would be all the people, right? We talked about this recently. Like, is Danny Rivera locked on starter, or
it's Frank
Darce?
It's Frank, and
I don't know.
I mean, you're right.
I enjoyed Frank there, but at the same time, like, he is traditionally a center back, so
we have the depth, though, to his point.
Yeah.
And then was interesting too, him talking about the upgrades and the 4 known signings that are here. It was interesting to hear him say that better at the ball at their feet. That's not something that I really thought about too much last season. He obviously, and he said it earlier in the interview too, that we didn't win in any of those kinds of certain stats. We just kind of got there through the scrappiness of the team and the determination to win. It looks like he's looking for some more technical improvement this season.
Yeah. Interesting. It looks like Tim is reading our mind here. It's almost like he knows this last segment here we're going to wrap up.
Well, we got one last thing, but then finally too, did you notice they said we're playing Pittsburgh 3 times and Detroit 3 times, but we're only playing Pittsburgh? He just couldn't bear to say Hartford 3 times, so he added Detroit in instead.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about it.
FC is not real. Can't hurt you.
Before we address Tim's comment, we do have one last interview, and this one was kind of an exclusive to Raising Anchor. We pulled JJ Williams off to the side and had a sit down with him. So here's JJ Williams in his own words on the offseason and kind of just getting his mindset for this preseason. So here with forward JJ Williams in the media day for preseason here. JJ, welcome back first and foremost. Did you get away? I know you've got a home here. Like, did you get out? Did you see family? Did you get into warmer weather during the offseason?
Yeah. I went to Texas for pretty much the whole time, just visiting my wife's family, and spent the holidays there. Got to play a lot of golf, fish and be outside, so I love that.
What was the biggest fish you caught in the off season?
Mostly small stuff. That's one thing I missed about Florida is,
that ocean.
The ocean, being able to go inshore and catch massive fish. But for the most part, nothing too memorable.
I can't help but think, I was here a year ago, almost to the day, and I remember you were here, but you weren't able to train, to practice. You were kind of laid up at the time with that injury, not being able to really even get into the squad until May. What's it like for you personally now, being a part of this and really being integrated in the earliest stages of the preseason?
I think that you gain so much at this part of and a lot of it's not soccer based. I think that you're getting your baseline for training, fitness, and stuff like that, which is important. I think the most important part is building that chemistry with the guys. We get a number of new guys on the team this year, and so just being around them, being able to help out, show them the way, show them what it's like here in Rhode Island, and just kind of get to know guys, being on opposing teams in the past, and finally now being on the same team, and just kind of showing that we're working towards the same goals going forward. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It's kind of tough whenever it's in such a small space for us to get a lot done, especially in preseason. We're not going to conquer Rome in a day, is what they say, but for us, it's just making sure that we're getting a little bit better every day, 1% better every day, and then at the end of preseason, we'll be sitting there going into season in a lot better spot than we were last year. So
you've got now Hugo, Maxi, Taimu, and Danny now all added to the team. Have you seen their impact immediately, or is it still too soon to see what exactly their contributions are going to be to this team dynamic?
I mean, Yeah, you can definitely see the quality that each one of those players has. There's a reason why they're here, and that the staff ended up bringing them here is because they saw that they can help us. And I guarantee you they're probably not the last ones. I think, the quality that they're adding, just trying to make us better than how we finished last year, making sure we can get over that hump is going to be very big. But we have a long way to go, like I said, and I'm just happy that coming in, seeing some of the new guys, they're just the willingness for them to work, and be committed to what we've had. I know it's only day 3, but attitude, effort, everything's been good, so pleased from it.
The last thing that I think of when it comes to last year is, becoming the runner-up in the USL Cup final. Obviously, as a player, I think there's a part that you have to kind of forget, right? It's new year, new you. But at the same time, have expectations around internally inside the clubhouse, have they changed? Or because do you have to run it back, I guess is what I'm asking, or can there be other milestones for success? Is the only thing forward to beat last season now to get the cup?
I think, looking at it, there's potentially 5 trophies we can win this year. And we want to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a spot to win as many of those as possible. I think the ultimate goal is, yes, make it back there and lift that trophy. The biggest thing for the guys that were here, we know how bad that hurt. I mean, it still does, and there's a lot of nights that you don't sleep from it, but it's...
Sorry to bring up the trauma.
No. It's one of those things that it's good. It's fuel to the fire, and I think if you don't want to get back to that spot, if you don't want to be in a winning team and a winning culture and be in those big games, and this probably isn't the place for you. And it's a lot of people probably aren't going to want to play with you. So I think that's just an expectation that we have. I know last year was year number 1, and it went a lot better than a lot of people were expecting. But for us, now that we see that it's possible and we know that it's possible, the expectation is you step out there game 1 and you go out there to win. We're not looking at the end of the season. We're not looking at lifting trophies. We're looking at going out there game 1, being as good as we possibly can and finding a way to get a result, and then we look at game 2, so we just go game by game.
Coach told us at the end of the season that he watched you transform in that playoff period where it was like goals were giving you like the wind beneath your wings. You were a completely transformed player. How much of that are you trying to carry forward? How much of that are you trying to work on for yourself to be the best version of yourself for the 2025 campaign?
Absolutely. I mean, I think every striker, whenever you're really scoring goals and hitting form, is the best time to be playing. Obviously, everybody loves that. I think my confidence has been there from even the very beginning of me coming back, knowing that things were going to get better. And it didn't end up happening until the end of the season, but that was the most important time for us. So if I had to change it or have it any other way, I wouldn't, because it showed me a lot and I learned a lot from the end of that season. And I think of going forward, that's just my expectation. It's been my expectation since I became a pro and knowing what my ability is. And it might seem crazy to have that as your standard and your expectation. You're going to do that all the time, but that's kind of the way that I operate, and my family is kind of ingrained in me and operate. So, that stretch, I want every game to look like that stretch. I want in 2 and 3 game spans having that many goals. So that is what I try to do night in and night out.
And then finally, big event happening on 5/3, maybe a game earlier depending on how this Open Cup thing shakes out, but fans are going to get to return, see you and the rest of the guys playing at our brand new stadium at Tidewater. Have you been to the stadium yet? Have you been able to experience it? How excited are you on a scale of 1 to infinity on what this is going to be for you?
It's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be really amazing. The amount of work that people have put into it, even behind the scenes, everybody doing construction on it, but all the political stuff that had to happen for this to go through has been amazing, and the amount of support that we've received, and friends and neighbors and fans, and everybody's so excited for that stadium. Even people that don't know anything about soccer, they're excited for that historic event in that stadium and how much it means to the state. So I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a packed house. I know our marketing team's doing a great job making sure that those tickets are sold out, but I think especially being a part of it last year and seeing it from nothing build into something, thinking about having our first game in there and how much it's going to mean to everybody around us, it can be a place like no other. So
awesome. Thanks, JJ.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
you. He is so well spoken. Like, even when he's talking about nothing, he's talking about everything.
I mean, everyone on the team really is. I think that coach and all of the rest, Kano, that is, and all the rest of the coaching staff have found like a bunch of like great young men. Like, back to the whole thing of, he's not having to worry about these guys going out there and like causing trouble. They're all a bunch of professionals who are here to, learn and advance their career and really enjoy the game of soccer.
Yeah, no, and JJ, he's got another child on the way. I asked, we've got Trip for triple. I asked if Quad was on the way, and that did not translate. But I'm excited, and again, remember, we didn't have JJ Williams until May, and then if we're being honest with ourselves, we didn't really have JJ Williams then either. It definitely took him a while. I think he put a little bit more pressure on himself than he needed to. Chico was in a rut at that period of time too, after some of the penalty kick debacles that had happened to him and like giving him the yips, if you will. So, having all of these guys now back in, and trust me, when I saw them at practice, they didn't hold back. Like, I saw Jojea get kicked in the shin, and I was like, oh, he's just injured now for the rest of the season. Like, they go at it. This is not like the USMNT what do they call it, like the cupcake the cupcake friendlies in January. Like, that's not what this was. So listen, we're running long. This has been an excellent podcast. I want to make sure though, are you on board now with my tinfoil conspiracy?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go build my little tinfoil hat here after this. So Minnesota United announced today that the club has signed defender Nicolas Romero from Club Atlético Tucumán to a 3-year contract through December of 2027 with a club option for 2028. Romero will occupy a U22 initiative and international roster spot pending receipt of his P1 visa and international transfer certificate. So they just signed another defender. I mean, what's
say the words. Say it. You want to say it. Who's coming back, Jason?
Yeah. He's coming back home.
Boris Dugan is coming back, guys. I'm telling you now, I've never felt more sure. Again, know nothing on the inside. I've never felt more sure in my life that Morris Dugan will return once more to wear the amber and blue. But with that note, to kind of wrap things up, because we are running long, I want to thank everyone for listening tonight. It's been a blast. We are now officially at 1,000 followers on Instagram.
Nice.
That may not seem like something crazy, but like, growing the brand from, again, the very first pod was out for 3 months and 10 people listened to it. It has been such a reward to just grow this podcast with you, Jason, and with the fans in the audience. We've got 73 people right now listening live stream. We're now up to, if we were running off of old Bryant numbers from the stadium, we're at like 25% of the stadium attendance is our listenership on average on like rolling subscription. We're of course now back down to 10% with Tidewater numbers, but hey, like it's just more growth, more work to do.
Got work to do, yeah.
Exactly. It'd be great if this listenership on Instagram translated to like Blue Sky and X/Twitter and YouTube. But hey, I'm not going to be judgy. I just want to thank everyone that listens and puts up with us every Thursday at 8:00, and can't wait to do it again next week with you and with all the fans.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all. You're the best. And with that, make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all of your New England soccer coverage, including RAFC. And that's at theblazingmusket.com. RAFC podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor, and we've got that website, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up, buddy.
Anchor's up.